Jefferson County's fighting-age male Union sympathizers, threatened with arrest for treason against the newly forming Confederacy, left the county. And as the gravitational forces of solidarity brought most of the remaining white young men to enlistment points for the Confederacy, their destiny was with Virginia. As Logan Osborne of Cabletown so famously concluded, their wives and mothers began feverishly making havelocks and clothing for their young men. Roughly 900 men from Jefferson County would fight for the Confederacy in 13 different units during the war. At least 130 Jefferson County-born African Americans fought in the United States colored troops, and a smaller number of white countians enlisted in a variety of scattered federal units. Eight 8,000 enlistees would flock to Bolivar Heights by May 23rd from as far away as Mississippi, joined soon by a mercurial West Point graduated professor from the Virginia Military Institute named Thomas Jonathan Jackson, who quickly put them through their paces and drilled them so relentlessly that notions of war as a grand brief lark were dashed, and some complained that the exercises were meant to kill them sooner than a fired bullet. James Allen was there, while his wife Julia Pendleton Allen and their young son Hugh Pendleton Allen were at home on their county farm. George Rust Bettinger, Henry Bettinger's son by a previous marriage, and who rode in the ring tournament a few years prior on his horse Saladin, was there with Alexander Boteler Jr. The former was confident, encouraging, skillful. The latter, often angry to distraction because Bettinger mocked him mercilessly, for he suffered from a stutter. William Fitzhugh Lee, a career Army officer, was raised in part by the Shepherdstown Lees after his father died in Alexandria. By the time of the war, he had graduated from the Virginia Military Institute, had married Lily Perrin of Shepherdstown, and fathered their daughter, Laura. In 1861, he arrived to help in the instruction of the ever-increasing number of hungry recruits at Bolivar Heights, all thinking they would defend Harper's Ferry against invasion. His family were at their home on the northeast corner of German and Mill Street with Lily's remarried mother, Laura Perrin Towner. Edwin Gray Lee, who once dressed up as the Knight of Alhambra at the erstwhile tournament, the eldest son of Edmund and Henrietta Lee, likewise came to camp and was soon Jackson's aide-de-camp. The Lees tried to visit him at Camp Jackson in Bolivar Heights near Harper's Ferry while drilling was underway. Henrietta Lee wrote her eldest daughter, Ida Rust,
"Your papa took Virginia, also known as Diddy, and me up to see them last week. We met with our usual luck, broke down twice, and after various delays and accidents got there at 3:30, stayed half an hour, and jolted home, which we reached at 10 o'clock at night, being 11 hours in the spring wagon."
Lee continued to Ida about their relative in Connecticut, Susan Cornwall.
I am sorry to say she has joined her voice to the baying and barking of the northern bloodhounds, and seems crazy upon the subject of the flag, Union and Constitution. Oh, at times I am so sick of noise and wrangling and contest that I long for the wings of a dove to flee away.
Henry Kidd Douglas, the 23-year-old one-time president of that ring tournament from a few years before, who lived with his family at Ferry Hill, overlooking the Potomac from the Maryland side, arrived at the camp, come what may. His father, Reverend Robert Douglas, was part owner of the valuable covered wooden bridge at River's Edge.
Personally, I had no feeling of resentment against the people of the North because of their desire for the emancipation of the enslaved, for I believed Negro slavery was a curse to the people of the Middle States. As a boy, I had determined never to own anyone. When on the 17th April, 1861, the Virginia Convention passed the Ordinance of Secession, I had no doubt of my duty. In a week, I was back on the Potomac. When I found my mother sewing on heavy shirts, with a heart doubtless heavier than I knew, I suspected for what and whom they were being made. In a few days, I was at Harper's Ferry, a private in the Shepherdstown Company, Company B, 2nd Virginia Infantry. On June 13, 1861, General Joseph Johnston, who replaced the less experienced Jackson, won the argument to not stay and defend Harper's Ferry, and ordered his force to evacuate Harper's Ferry, taking different directions. Some moved up the river, another larger force towards Charlestown. They would reunite in Berkeley County, make their way, some using rail, toward Bull Run, Manassas, and fight in the first major battle of the war. Meantime, the Federal Army, under General Robert Patterson, was basically duped into remaining in the local region, not detecting the hurried movement of Johnston's men to the Manassas battle location. When Federal General Robert Patterson began to demonstrate from Hagerstown to cross the Potomac at Williamsport, General Johnston determined to evacuate Harper's Ferry. I was with the regiment that marched to Shepherdstown to destroy the bridge over the Potomac at that point. I was with the company that set fire to it, and when in the glare of the burning timbers, I saw the glowing windows in my home on the hill beyond the river, and knew my father was a stockholder in the property that I was helping to destroy, I realized that war had begun. I knew that I was severing all connection between me and my family, and understood the sensation of one who, sitting aloft on the limb of a tree, cuts it off between himself and the trunk and awaits results. Not long after, I saw the heavens lighted up over in Maryland one dark night, and knew that the gorgeous bonfire was made from the material and contents of my father's barn. I saw that I was advancing rapidly in knowledge of the meaning of war.
As the armies inched closer to clashing, more men in Jefferson County enlisted, or at least tried to. At Westwood near Summit Point, Hugh Nelson Pendleton's son, Dudley Diggs Pendleton, a half-brother to Colonel Allen's wife Julia, was a graduate of Washington College. He had not yet realized his future wife, Tippy Boteler. He enlisted June 19th into the 1st Rockbridge Artillery at Winchester as war began to unfold. At the Bower farm, 16-year-old Adam Stephen Dandridge wanted to enlist but was prevented by his concerned parents. On July 2nd, 1861, as the first area battle erupted in Berkeley County at Falling Waters, the Cannon could be heard across the valley with a different, strange effect on each individual who met the blasts. Wrote Dandridge's daughter, Serena Dandridge, much later.
It was a piping hot July day, the first day of harvest in the long terrapin neck bottom along the creek. The wheat was standing tall and fine that year, a heavy crop. Father was swinging the first cradle, and the colored cradlers were strung out in a long line beside him. He was only 16, but over 6 feet tall and wiry and tough. As the cradling went on, the sun's heat beat down more and more fiercely. Suddenly, the booming of cannon was heard from over the hills in the direction of Martinsburg. Like an electric shock, the words, "The war has begun," ran through the field. Father said he saw one of the cradlers, a big, strong colored man, give a yell and jump straight up in the air and fall down dead with sunstroke. It may be assumed that it was a heart condition. In the field, all was in confusion. Father flung his cradle down, and he and some of the boys got on horses and went off to join the battle. The dead man was carried home. The boys and horses were eventually corralled and brought back, the easier because the battle, which was only a skirmish, was over before they arrived. This was only the first time Stevie ran off to join the army. When Father was a young boy, the Bower was a busy and peaceful spot. He had learned to swim by being tossed into the flooded creek with the foot bridge by one of the older cousins, Philip Pendleton Cook, with orders to "Swim, you little devil." The manly art of self-defense was not neglected, and Papa was a match for the best, black or white, but he says their bouts were always friendly. As the time of the Civil War drew near, excitement was in the air, and the boys made themselves bows and arrows and staged sham battles. One well-remembered day, Stevie dared the others to shoot at him, and one of the neighbor boys stepped up, drew a bead on him, quoting, "For Philip's right eye." The arrow landed in Father's right eye. Of course, the pain was terrible. Finally, a cataract formed over the eye, and he was often in severe pain during the war.